The Memphis Grizzlies have just found an absolute gem at the end of their bench, and honestly, this guy looks like a top 5 pick. Let me explain. This is GG Jackson, an unbelievable talent that somehow fell all the way to 45th in the draft for Memphis. And his path to getting to the Grizzlies was certainly unusual. He initially was in the 2023 high school class, one of the top ranked players in the 2023 high school class, which ordinarily would mean that he would be in the 2024 NBA draft. He wouldn't even be in the NBA right now, much less a second round pick. Initially, he was in the 2023 class and committed to play at UNC, but then later decommitted from UNC, something that hasn't happened since J.R. Smith did it in 2006. Guys don't commit to UNC basketball and then dip and decommit, but GG Jackson did it. Not only did he decommit, but he also reclassified to the 2022 high school class, which meant that he graduated high school early and was in college a year early as well, and then later committed to play basketball at South Carolina. This was a huge deal. This is a guy from South Carolina, player of the year in high school basketball in South Carolina. This was a massive recruit for them. And as a freshman, he did have an up and down season. There were some moments where he got benched and didn't look fantastic, but he did end the year leading them in scoring over 15 points per game as a very young freshman in college, led them in steals, led them in blocks, and then found his way into the 2023 NBA draft. Again, a draft he wasn't even supposed to be in the first place. And because of all the uncertainty with him changing high school classes, with him decommitting, with him being so young, he fell all the way to 45th, picked by the Grizzlies. And because of his high school pedigree, there has been a ton of excitement around this guy, and now we're really starting to see why. And now all of a sudden he looks like an absolute diamond in the rough for the Grizzlies, showing off the athleticism, the improved skill set from three-point range, the cutting ability, the defensive instincts. Guys with this combination of skill level and athleticism just don't get picked in the middle of the second round, especially when they're the youngest player in the entire league. And for Memphis, this is a huge deal for a couple of reasons. One, because basically their entire starting lineup is now injured, GG Jackson is going to get a ton of run at the NBA level and have basically an entire season to develop into what Memphis needs him to be. Desmond Bane's going to be hurt a while. Marcus Smart's going to be hurt a while. John Morant is out the entire season. It's Jaren Jackson Jr. and GG Jackson and like Luke Kennard for basically the next 2 months for Memphis. And based off what we've seen so far, that's pretty much all this guy needs is minutes and run and experience to become a big-time NBA player. Now, there's obviously no guarantee that he's going to become a star, even a high-level starter, but this is a massive deal for Memphis because this archetype, this kind of player, a front court wing kind of guy that can shoot and can score, that's someone that they have been looking for years in Memphis. They have Ja, they have Desmond Bane, they have Jaren Jackson, and they have plenty of guys to throw out there at the 5 spot, but they've been looking for a versatile two-way wing like this for years. They took swings in the draft on guys like Zaire Williams, moving up in the draft to go and get him to get this specific kind of player. And they might have found one in someone that was completely overlooked in GG Jackson. And honestly, with the way he has looked in granted limited minutes, had he not reclassified and just gone to college in 2023 and been in college right now and come out in the 2024 draft in what is a weak draft class, he honestly might have been a top 5 pick in that class, and Memphis got him with the 45th pick. And when you watch him play now with Memphis, if you didn't know who any of the players were on the floor, you didn't know where they were drafted, you would have just assumed that this was a guy that was absolutely a top 10, certainly a first round pick. Now, the big thing for him, the make or break skill for him at the NBA level is going to be his three-point shooting. That's one of the reasons why he has looked so good recently playing against Golden State in this most recent game, is that he's making shots from the outside and his shot looks good. That's something that's really important for him. A lot of guys come in the league and the mechanics don't look great. It's quick, it looks smooth, it looks clean, and even though he didn't shoot it great in the G League, he took a ton of attempts but shot under 30%, and in college with the shorter three-point line he shot over 30%, but it wasn't a great number. Even with that in mind, the shot looks like it's going to translate, and it's so clear for him to figure out exactly what his role is going to be on this team. They don't need a primary facilitator. They have that with Ja. They don't need a secondary facilitator. They have that with Desmond Bane, who also creates great spacing alongside Ja. They don't need a do-everything defensive guy in the front court. They have that with Jaren Jackson Jr. If GG Jackson can guard, shoot, and bring them a boost of athleticism on the wing like they hope Zaire Williams would be, that changes everything for Memphis, and it's so critical for them because this is basically a lost season at this point. And if they don't get this spot on the roster figured out, it's going to continue to put a ceiling on a team that looked at times last year like one of the best teams in the entire league. And getting players like this in the second round and the late first round is what big time contending teams do. Teams that take a leap, teams that find themselves in a better situation than they normally would have been. It happens as a result of finding guys like this. And honestly, looking back, it's crazy to think that nobody managed to just take a flyer on this guy in the first round. Now, having said all those things, this is a guy that has played a handful of NBA games before just playing a handful of G League games at the time of this recording. But sometimes you just watch a guy and you see how young he is and you just know that they have something. This might not be a high-level starter, but this is someone, and that doesn't happen very often in the middle of the second round. And if I were the Grizzlies, the entirety of the rest of the season to me would be dependent on, let's just make sure that we're putting him in positions to be successful, make him look like the guy that we want him to look like over the next couple of seasons, because this could be absolutely massive and franchise changing for the Grizzlies. And honestly, if I'm watching Memphis games the rest of the year, it is going to be to watch this guy. Now, to be fair, there are plenty of guys like this that have similar levels of athleticism, a similar physical profile, and a great high school pedigree that either get to the NBA and everybody thinks they're going to be great and then they aren't, or that go into the second round for a lot of different reasons and don't end up working out. There is nothing that guarantees a high-level NBA career just by being a highly ranked high school prospect. We know that. We know that if you go and look back at, any high school rankings, there's no guarantee that anybody in the top 10 is going to end up having any kind of high-level career. There are no guarantees with that, but that's not why I made the video. I didn't make the video because GG Jackson was this, former highly touted high school player. I didn't make the video because he had a good freshman season in college. I made the video because of how he has looked, not only in the G League, but with Memphis in actual NBA games. And sometimes there's just a look that a guy has, and there's an athleticism and a physical profile and a body control aspect and a skill set. And it's kind of undeniable right now that this is someone to keep an eye on, certainly. I'm not saying that GG Jackson is going to be a star within the next 4 years, but I am saying that if he had gone to college and done the normal thing 2023 and been in the 2024 draft and looked something like he has looked right now as the youngest player in the entire league, I don't see how in a weak draft class he wouldn't have been a top 5, top 10 pick. And it is crazy that Memphis is just being gifted that guy on their roster and at a position of need with incredibly high upside as well. There are guys that end up in the second round that are former, highly touted high school players. There are guys that we get excited about in the second round in the beginning of the year every year, but these kinds of players that look the way that he does, this does not happen very often, and that is why it's such a big deal.